Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive that might just turn your ideas about dieting upside down?
Sounds intriguing.
You bet it is. Today we're going to be talking about high-carb diets for weight loss.
High carb for weight loss.
Yep, you heard that right. We're going to be ditching the low-carb dogma and embracing all those carbs that people are always told to avoid.
Okay, I'm definitely curious to hear more about this.
I bet. We're going to be looking at a research study called High-Carb Diet, Effortless Weight Loss and Hormonal Benefits.
That title alone is pretty provocative.
It really is.
Yeah.
We're going to see if this research actually lives up to the hype and find out how a high-carb diet might actually help people lose weight effortlessly and have positive hormonal effects.
I think a lot of people listening are probably pretty skeptical right now.
Oh, I'm sure they are.
The idea that you could eat carbs and lose weight probably seems pretty counterintuitive.
Yeah, it goes against so much of what we hear about dieting.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So let's dive into this research and see what we can learn.
Sounds good to me. So this study really throws a wrench into how we usually think about losing weight.
It really does.
It asks a pretty radical question.
What's that?
What if we could just change the types of food we eat to naturally reduce our calorie intake? What if we didn't have to restrict calories at all?
That's a pretty bold idea.
Right.
So how did they even begin to test that?
Well, they started with a group of subjects who were all at their highest weight,
Okay,
but they were maintaining that weight on a moderate carb diet.
got it.
And then for a whole month, they carefully controlled what these subjects ate.
A whole month? That's pretty intense.
Yeah, it was a very controlled study.
So what did they have them eat?
They switched them back and forth between two different diets,
Okay.
a higher fat diet and a high carb, low fat diet.
Interesting.
But the key here is that both diets had the same number of calories.
Ah, so any changes they saw wouldn't just be because people were eating less.
Exactly. It had to be something about the composition of the diet itself.
Smart. So what happened? Did people magically start losing weight on the high-carb diet right away?
Well, not right away,
Oh,
but there was a really interesting observation right from the beginning.
what was that?
Even while they were maintaining their weight, participants reported feeling a lot fuller on the high-carb diet compared to the higher fat diet.
Interesting.
It was like something about all those carbs was keeping them satisfied for longer.
Yeah, I can see how that would make sense.
Right. Like I've definitely noticed I feel way more full after a big bowl of lentil soup than I do after like a small handful of nuts.
Yeah, totally. Even if the calorie counts are similar,
Exactly.
it really highlights the difference between calorie density and nutrient density.
For sure. But here's where the study gets really interesting.
Okay, I'm all ears.
After that first month of being on those controlled diets, the researchers basically said, okay, now you can eat as much as you want on the high-carb diet.
Wait, so they could just eat to their heart's content?
Pretty much. And I think you can guess what happened next.
Let me guess. This is where the effortless weight loss comes in.
Bingo.
Wow, that's amazing. So they just let them eat as much as they wanted on a high-carb diet, and they started losing weight.
It's pretty wild, right?
It is.
Huh.
So how much weight did they lose?
Every single participant lost weight.
No way. Everyone.
Everyone. And they weren't even trying to restrict their calories or anything.
That's incredible.
It really is. And get this, 2 people actually had to be dropped from the study
Why? What happened?
because they lost so much weight.
Seriously?
Yep. The researchers were worried that they were intentionally dieting, which would have messed up the results of the study.
Wow. So they had to exclude them because they were losing too much weight.
I know, it's crazy, right?
Right.
It really shows how powerful this approach can be.
That's wild. So it wasn't just about feeling full, they were actually eating less overall.
Exactly. On average, participants naturally reduced their calorie intake by about 16%.
16%. Just by eating until they felt satisfied on the high-carb diet.
That's right. They weren't counting calories or measuring portions or anything like that.
Wow. So what's the secret? What's driving this effortless weight loss?
Well, I think it's time to talk about hormones.
All right, let's do it. I have a feeling this is where things get really interesting.
You bet. Okay, so hormones.
Yeah, hormones are definitely key players here.
One of the big ones we hear about with hunger and feeling full is leptin.
Leptin, exactly.
Sometimes it's called the satiety hormone, right?
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
Because it basically tells your brain that you're full and you can stop eating.
Right, like it's sending a signal to your brain saying, okay, we're good. We've had enough.
And what I always hear is that when people lose weight, their leptin levels go way down.
Yeah, that's a really common problem.
And then that makes them feel super hungry all the time.
Exactly. It's like your body is fighting against you, trying to get you back to your old weight.
Ugh, that sounds so frustrating.
It is. It's
Yeah.
one of the biggest reasons why people struggle to maintain weight loss.
So what happened in the study? Did the same thing happen?
Well, their leptin levels did go down.
Oh, so no magic bullet there.
Well, hold on. It's not that simple.
Okay, what happened?
Even though their leptin levels decreased, they stayed in proportion to their body fat percentage.
Hmm, I don't quite follow.
So basically, as they lost weight, their leptin levels adjusted accordingly.
Oh, I see. So their bodies weren't freaking out and sending out all those "I'm starving" signals.
Exactly. And that's really important for long-term weight management.
Because it means they're less likely to experience those intense cravings and rebound weight gain that we were just talking about.
Right. Their bodies weren't going into starvation mode, trying to hold on to every calorie.
So it seems like this high-carb diet was somehow preventing that drastic drop in leptin that we usually see with weight loss.
And there's more.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued.
We also have to talk about something called leptin sensitivity.
Leptin sensitivity.
Yep. Have you heard of that before?
Not really.
So basically, your body can become resistant to leptin.
Like how people become resistant to insulin.
Exactly. Same kind of thing.
Wow. So even if you're producing enough leptin, your body might not be listening to it.
That's right. It's like your brain isn't getting the message that you're full.
And then you just keep eating and eating.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Oh, man, that sounds rough.
It can be. But here's the really interesting part.
What's that?
This study found that the high-carb diet seemed to actually improve leptin sensitivity.
No way. Really?
Yep. It was like the diet was helping their bodies to better recognize and respond to those fullness signals.
So even though their leptin levels were going down, their bodies were becoming more sensitive to it.
Precisely. It's pretty amazing.
That is amazing.
And it suggests that maybe one of the reasons why people were losing weight so effortlessly on this diet is because they were finally able to tune into their body's natural hunger and fullness cues.
That makes so much sense. Their bodies were finally able to hear those signals loud and clear.
Right. It's like the diet was resetting their internal appetite regulation system.
So it wasn't just about preventing a drop in leptin. It was about making their bodies more receptive to it.
That seems to be a big part of it.
Okay, but wait a minute. Leptin isn't the only hunger hormone, is it?
Nope. You're absolutely right.
There's also ghrelin.
Ghrelin, exactly. And it plays a pretty important role, too.
So if leptin is like the brake pedal, what's ghrelin?
Ooh, that's a good analogy. If leptin is the brake pedal, ghrelin is the gas pedal.
Uh-huh, okay, I get it.
Leptin tells you to stop eating ghrelin, tells you to start eating.
So did this high-carb diet have any effect on ghrelin?
It sure did. Actually, one of the most remarkable findings of this study was that the high-carb diet suppressed ghrelin levels.
Suppress them.
Yeah, both during the initial phase of the study where they were controlling calories,
Well,
and then also during that 12-week period when they were allowed to eat freely and they started losing weight.
so hold on. Not only was this diet helping their bodies respond better to fullness signals, but it was also actually reducing their hunger pangs.
Exactly. It's pretty
Wow.
wild.
It really is. I mean, this is totally changing the way I think about dieting.
I know, right? It's really exciting.
It's like we've been so focused on willpower and restriction as the only way to lose weight.
Yeah, for so long it's been all about calories in versus calories out.
Right. But the study is suggesting that maybe there's a whole other way to approach weight loss.
I think so too.
Maybe it's more about working with our bodies and not against them.
Couldn't agree more.
It's about finding ways to naturally reduce our calorie intake without feeling deprived or hungry all the time.
And it looks like this high-carb diet might be one way to do that.
Okay, so it's not just about counting calories, it's about making sure those calories are coming from the right sources.
Yes. And focusing on foods that help us feel full and satisfied.
Okay, so we've talked about leptin and ghrelin, but there's one more big concern that always comes up when we talk about high-carb diets.
I think I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, what about insulin?
The big bad insulin.
Right. Isn't eating a lot of carbs supposed to spike your insulin levels?
That's what we've been told for years.
And isn't that supposed to lead to all sorts of problems like insulin resistance and diabetes?
That's the conventional wisdom.
It seems like it totally goes against everything we thought we knew about healthy eating.
Right. But here's where this study gets really mind-blowing.
Okay, wait on me.
They actually found the exact opposite to be true.
What do you mean?
Insulin levels actually went down during the high-carb phase of the study.
Wait, are you serious?
I'm totally serious. And not only that, but participants also showed improvements in their insulin sensitivity.
No way. So instead of making things worse, the high-carb diet actually seemed to improve their metabolic health.
It's pretty incredible, right?
It really is. I think this might be the most surprising finding of the whole study.
It definitely challenges a lot of our assumptions about carbs.
For sure. So for our listeners who might not be familiar, can you quickly explain what insulin sensitivity is and why it matters?
You got it. So basically, insulin sensitivity is all about how well your body responds to insulin.
Yeah.
Insulin is a hormone that helps your body use glucose for energy.
Right. Glucose is what we get from carbs.
Exactly. When your cells are sensitive to insulin, they can easily take up glucose from your bloodstream.
And that helps keep your blood sugar levels nice and stable.
Exactly. But when someone has poor insulin sensitivity, also known as insulin resistance, their cells don't respond to insulin as well.
So what happens then?
Well, it means that glucose can start to build up in the bloodstream.
And that leads to high blood sugar.
Right. And over time, that can increase the risk of developing prediabetes and type 2 diabetes.
Got it. So improving insulin sensitivity is really important for preventing those metabolic issues.
It's absolutely crucial. And what's so fascinating about this study is that it suggests that a high-carb diet might actually be a good strategy for doing just that.
That's amazing. It totally flips the script on everything we thought we knew about carbs.
It really does.
Hmm.
Now, it's important to note that this was a very specific type of high-carb diet.
Right. They were very careful about controlling the types of carbs people were eating.
Exactly. It wasn't just a free-for-all carb fest.
And they were also keeping the fat intake relatively low.
Right. So it seems like the ratio of carbs to fat in your diet might be a key factor here.
Interesting. So it's not just about eating more carbs, it's about finding the right balance of macronutrients for your body.
Exactly. It's all about personalized nutrition.
This study definitely gives us a lot to think about.
It really does. It opens up a whole new world of possibilities for how we approach weight loss and metabolic health.
I'm sure our listeners are eager to hear more about how they can apply these findings to their own lives.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Bridging the gap between research and real-world application is so important.
Okay, so let's get practical.
Practical, yeah.
If someone's listening to this and they're thinking, okay, this high carb thing sounds interesting, but where do I even start?
That's a great question.
What advice would you give them?
Well, first of all, I'd say don't go overboard.
Don't just start eating all the bread and pasta you can get your hands on.
Uh-huh. Right. Remember, this study was looking at a very specific type of high-carb diet.
It was low in fat, right?
Exactly. They were keeping the fat intake pretty low.
So it seems like finding that balance of carbs and fat is really important.
It seems to be a key factor, yeah.
Okay, so what would be a good first step for someone who wants to experiment with this approach?
I'd say start by gradually increasing the amount of whole, unprocessed carbs in your diet.
So things like fruits, vegetables, legumes, whole grains.
All those good things.
Those are the nutritional powerhouses.
They really are.
So instead of reaching for that bag of chips, maybe grab an apple or some carrot sticks.
Exactly. It's about crowding out the less nutritious options with those fiber-rich, nutrient-dense carbs.
And I guess it's also important to pay attention to how you feel.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Your body will give you clues.
Like, are you feeling fuller for longer after meals? Are your energy levels more stable? Are you having fewer cravings?
All of those things. Tuning into those subtle cues from your body can be so helpful.
It's all about intuitive eating, right?
Yes. Learning to listen to your body's natural hunger and fullness signals.
Instead of relying on external rules and restrictions.
Exactly.
And I bet that takes some practice.
It definitely does.
Yeah.
But it's so worth it.
It can be really empowering to reconnect with your body's wisdom.
It really can.
Well, this whole conversation has been a real eye-opener.
It has been fascinating.
We've challenged some of our assumptions about dieting.
And explored some really groundbreaking research.
It seems like maybe, just maybe, carbs aren't the enemy we've always thought they were.
I think this study definitely gives us a lot to think about.
It really does. So before we wrap up, I want to leave everyone with one final thought.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
If something as simple as changing the types of carbs we eat can have such a big impact on our weight, our hormones, our overall health,
It's pretty remarkable, right?
what other possibilities might be out there? What other small changes could we make that could have a huge impact on our well-being? It's something to ponder as we continue to learn and explore the fascinating world of nutrition.
Absolutely. There's always more to discover.